Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson here to preview the Oklahoma-Texas game. We are still a little over a week out from it. You can catch it 2:30 Central on ABC. We don't have a line yet from our friends at Bet Online. However, the model that I've got, which is pretty close to predicting lines, is going to have Texas about a 14.5-point favorite. Can't wait to see this one, Chase, as both teams are going to be renewing a rivalry, but just in a different league.
Right. I mean, this is a game we've seen a lot of in the Red River Rivalry as they play in the Cotton Bowl, and it's always a huge game for these two teams. And so, yeah, to welcome it as a rivalry of the SEC, I think is really big because again, it is a really fun rivalry. We've seen some really good games, and what's interesting to me about this one is Texas owns the series, but if you look at it in the past 24 years, since the year 2000, Oklahoma has won more games. In fact, they have won 17 of those games since the year 2000. So it's kind of been Oklahoma in the last 24 meetings, but this one should be fun again because Texas, again, really good. Oklahoma's trying to come into their own after quite a few injuries. We'll break this game down, but it's interesting because it is a rivalry game, and it's one of those I feel like anything could happen. We saw that last year.
We sure did. Let's talk about when Texas has the ball against Oklahoma's defense, which is probably the most intriguing side of the matchup. Texas averaging 46 points and 70 snaps a game, a turnover rate of 2%. The Longhorns run it 53% of the time. Now, look, they have been blowing teams out. And so I don't know how much that affects things. Obviously, they've got two outstanding quarterbacks to lean on if needed. They're averaging 5.3 per running play, 9.6 per passing play, 7.3 per snap. OU's defense, which is its best unit, 16 points a game on 68 snaps. Oklahoma forces a turnover 3.8% of the time. That's really high. Teams will run it 54% of the time against the Sooners, 3.5 yards per rushing play. That adjusts for sacks, and just 5.3 yards a passing play, 4.8 total. Oklahoma even held down the powerful Tennessee offense. Of course, that game was, pretty one-sided for a while, and I'm not sure Tennessee had to put its foot on the gas, but it's going to face a Texas offense I think is very similar in a lot of ways to Tennessee's.
Yeah, it is. And the fact that Oklahoma was able to hold Tennessee to 25 points, I think says a lot because Tennessee is a team that can score. Same with Texas. They're a team that could score. Now, as we sit here on recording this a little over a week away from the game, we're not sure for Texas at this point, what the quarterback situation will look like. Obviously, the bye week will help with some injuries, but will we see Quinn Ewers get to start? Arch Manning, who knows at this point? I think Quinn Ewers should be ready to go for this game. But either way, they're going to score a lot of points. They're going to be able to move the ball offensively, and so I think this is a really good matchup with this offense against this defense because Oklahoma's defense has been the calling card for their season, for their team all season long. They've been able to get the defense has been able to keep them in games when the offense has struggled. And so I think this is kind of the key to this matchup is how can Texas defense exploit the Oklahoma or how can Texas offense exploit the Oklahoma defense, and what can Oklahoma do to get in and put some pressure on the quarterback and make them make quick decisions? Because that's something I feel like Texas hasn't faced this year, been in a situation where the quarterbacks are having to make quick decisions or having to scramble to get the ball out, and Oklahoma can provide that this week.
Well, I think the challenge for both sides, for Texas, it's holding on to the ball. I mean, Oklahoma has got 18 sacks to create a ton of havoc. We've talked about Billy Bowman, Danny Stutsman, but at the same time, I mentioned Tennessee and Texas as a comparison. Here's one place where that really holds together is that they just get the ball to so many guys. I mean, they've got several guys. Blue and Gibson are involved in the running game, both quality backs. Trey Wisner also. And then once we get into passing targets, it's just kind of, ridiculous. They've got two really good tight ends and Amari Niblack, who has not been that involved. Gunnar Helm's caught a bunch of balls for them. Matthew Golden's kind of stepped up. Silas Bolden's had kind of a reduced role, but we know what he could do for Morgan State. Ryan Wingo, Isaiah Bond, who has really stood out for both Texas and Alabama, an explosive guy. I think that's the issue. If you're Texas, you've got to minimize the turnovers, but if you're Oklahoma, you've got so many guys to cover that it's a challenge for any defense.
It really is, and that's one thing Texas has going for them this year, I think, is the amount of offensive weapons that they have. And yeah, this will be a test right up there for Oklahoma's defense, like it was against Tennessee. But yeah, I feel like maybe Texas has a few more weapons than Tennessee does. Not to really compare those two teams in this video, but Texas has a lot of guys they can go to, and whoever it is, Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning, both can get it to them. And so, yeah, huge challenge for Oklahoma's defense, but I feel like these are the moments they live for. And again, it's not like they haven't been tested before. They have, and I think they even were in some ways the way Auburn moved the ball on Oklahoma. And so I think that this is going to be the key to the matchup right here, is how this defense can handle the Texas offense.
Well, and another key to that will be offensive line. The left side of Texas is really strong, led by Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle. So I think Oklahoma's gotten to the passer. I'm not sure it will face a challenge in getting to the quarterback's blind side like it's going to see against Texas. Before we preview the other side of the ball, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. It has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. So they'll probably have stuff we don't even talk about in this video. So when the line comes out, check out BetOnline and see all the totals and things there. While you're there, if you think you know your stuff, get in on our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000 when the game's over. Head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Bet online, the game starts here. It has been a rocky road for the Sooners offense. Multiple offensive line injuries. A couple of starters have been out. Probably still will be out for this one. Wide receiver injuries have decimated Oklahoma's wide receiving core. The running game from the running back position has not been something OU can really has been able to really produce in with any consistency. Change in quarterbacks for Oklahoma. Michael Hawkins Jr., that seems to have lit a fire under this team from about the second half of the Tennessee game on, as the offenses look better. But by the numbers, let me give you what we've got here for Oklahoma's offense against Texas's defense. And again, some of this is going to vary a little bit because the numbers with Hawkins are a little better, and he's got a higher passer rating and about the same in terms of yards per carry as Jackson Arnold had, but just a tad higher. And, of course, against better defenses. So not only the numbers been better, but they've been accumulated against much better competition. Anyway, numbers for the Sooners: 28.6 points on 63 snaps a game offensively, a 1.6% turnover rate. Oklahoma will run it 51% of the time, getting 4.4 yards per rushing play, 5 flat per passing play for an average of 4.7. Texas's defense has been one of the best in the country. It is allowing 7 points even a game, 61 snaps, a 3% turnover rate. Teams will run it 54% of the time against the Longhorns for 3.4 yards per carry, 4.2 per pass play, 3.8 total. Look, nobody's really been able to do much with this Texas defense, and that is really going to be the challenge. Oklahoma's going to have to get its very best play out of Michael Hawkins and probably get some early, because you cannot take a half off against this defense.
You're right, and they're going to have to be creative, use Michael Hawkins, I think, in some different ways. But as we look at this Oklahoma offense, it looks totally different, one, than like we thought they would, but two, like it did at the beginning of the season. We thought Jackson Arnold was going to be the starter all season. They've had all these receivers on the offensive line. It looks totally different. They've had guys out at wide receiver and having to bring different guys in, so it has looked different. And so there's so much about this offense that has just looked different. And it's hard to be consistent when you're constantly battling injury and having to change things up. And so I feel like the bye week will help get some guys healthy. that are not in these long-term injuries, that they do have some of those. But I feel like Michael Hawkins may be the guy to help you be able to move the ball against Texas and be creative in the run and some design runs and everything. So I will be interested to see how Oklahoma is able to move the ball. They have struggled with that at times, but is Michael Hawkins the spark they need? I think he very well could, and we'll see. I mean, this is a great game to find out if he is or not when they meet up with Texas next week.
Well, in Tennessee's front seven has been the best that Oklahoma's faced so far. I think they might be seeing one even better. Now, I'm not sure about the defensive line, but once you include the linebackers, that's where you get into Anthony Hill Jr., David Gabenda. Up front, they've got depth with Burke and Moore and Collins and all those guys. You look at the pass defense stats, you've had Hill's had a pick, Mukuba's had a pick, Jahdae Barron's had a pick, Derek Williams Jr.'s had a pick, Burke's had a pick. So that's 5 different guys. Their leader in passes defended is Barron, tied with Malik Muhammad, who doesn't have a pick. Just the depth is something that we have outlined with this Texas team. And, it's really on display, not just in their skill positions on offense, but when you start looking at the stat sheet and, we said before the year, to me, it caught my eye when you got Trey Moore to transfer in from UTSA, where he was the conference player of the year and accept a backup role. When you start doing that in an era where it is really hard to build depth in college football, that gets people's attention.
And that's what makes a championship type team. And I think that's what Texas is. We've talked about it. They have a good shot at the college football playoff, have a good shot at going deep in the playoff and even competing for the SEC championship. And that's one of the reasons why they're going to be able to stop a lot of these high-powered offenses, just because the depth they have on defense. It's very impressive. Steve Sarkisian, being the offensive mind that he is, he knows he's got to have a good defense, and I think he did a really good job of assembling that in the offseason.
All right, let's get to picks and why, and I'll start with you, Chase.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas, but look, I'm going to take a close game. I really think Oklahoma, it's a rivalry game. Oklahoma has had the better of Texas as of late. I think Oklahoma does a good job of slowing them down. Look, if Oklahoma can control the tempo of the game, that will look much different. I think it could be a low-scoring game, but I think Texas wins by a touchdown, but not a lot of points scored.
Yeah, I think the bye week might benefit Oklahoma a little bit more. Now, no, you had Quinn Ewers hurt for Texas. It's nice to get him healthy, but let's face it, the drop-off to Arch Manning was minimal. I mean, you're in outstanding shape there. It's the best quarterback room in the country, top to bottom. But I think if you're Oklahoma, you get Hawkins more reps with the first team in practice. You get him more comfortable. I think that could help close the gap a little bit. But the problem has just been obvious. It's been since the first half of the opener against Temple, when those offensive line injuries started. And I know you can't compare Temple to Texas, but hear me out. You could see it affect Oklahoma even in that setting. I still don't think the offensive line, it was certainly not going to be well completely for this one. The receiver injuries, I don't know where Anderson and Farouk and those guys are going to stand. And we're doing this again 9 days out from game day. So check your updates on injuries, after you listen to this and make your judgments accordingly. But my concern is you saw that affect the quality of play. It also affected the depth. It's sometimes when you get guys hurt, it's not just what it looks like now, but what happens if another guy gets hurt.
Right.
Texas may be the deepest team in the country, Chase. And I think Oklahoma's issues moving the football, I think I trust Oklahoma to make that better. But this is not the spot to do it. And I'm just concerned that I think Texas will win this. It might be close, but I think you have seen Texas just separate from teams at the end of games and continue to get stronger because of that depth just across the board. And I think, to me, Texas has the clear edge in this game. And among the biggest reasons for it is that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good assessment because, I mean, we're dealing with two different types of teams here. And again, Texas is built like a championship team, and it wouldn't surprise me if eventually they are one. So, I think that's a very fair assessment, Chris.
Yeah, can't wait to see this game. Can't wait to see both these teams finish the season. We actually did a video on Oklahoma earlier in the week this week talking about the reasons it could get better for Oklahoma. So if you know you fan, even a Texas fan, you may want to give that one a listen. We did a little deeper dive into the Sooners there. We cover football, baseball, basketball every week at our channel. Even the sports that are in the off season are getting coverage. Best way to get that, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, enable your notifications so that when content goes live, you will know it. If you're interested in advertising, and we reach millions of people a year here, caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. For Chase Robinson, I am Chris Lee. You've been watching and listening to Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.